At 3:17 a.m. They smashed through my front gate with a lifted truck, stormed my barn, and tried to frame me for environmental violations I never committed. All because a woman named Karen, yes, a real Karen, thought her fake HOA had the right to take my land. But what she didn't know was, I record everything. And by the time this war was over, she'd be in handcuffs. Her empire would burn. And I'd walk away with $790,000 in justice. This isn't just a story. This is what happens when a rancher fights back. Stay with me. They say peace is the reward of living far enough off the map. That's why I chose Wolf Creek, Texas, a stretch of rugged land where the only thing louder than the cicadas is the wind-rattling old barn doors. My name's Cole Barrett, ex-military, third-generation rancher, and the kind of guy who prefers barbed wire over property lines and the company of livestock over suburbia. But peace, as I'd soon learn, doesn't matter to people like her. It started on a Tuesday, hot, dusty. Just another day fixing a busted water line near the north fence. When I got back to the porch, there was a white envelope sticking out of my mailbox like a warning flag. No postage. Just my name scrawled in bubble letters across the front. Inside was a formal-looking letter, stamped with the shiny emblem of Red Pine Meadows Homeowners Association. I squinted at it like it was written in a foreign language. The letter, overly polite in that fake customer service tone, informed me that my property had been identified as non-compliant with community aesthetic standards and listed violations ranging from my mailbox, non-standard design, to unapproved fencing and visible rusted equipment which, by the way, was a 1971 Ford tractor I'd restored by hand. Here's the kicker, I don't live in Red Pine Meadows. My property sits nearly a mile from their gates. My land isn't under their jurisdiction. Never has been. No shared roads. No dues. No signatures. Just 22 acres of history passed down from my granddad and a damn clear deed to prove it. I laughed, tossed the letter in the burn barrel behind the barn and didn't think twice. 2 weeks later, a second letter showed up, this time with a fine stapled to it. $250 for continued non-compliance. The tone was different now. Less friendly. More aggressive. The letter claimed that under the community's extended aesthetic zone clause, properties within a 1-mile buffer were encouraged to align with Red Pine standards. Encouraged. My ass. It read like a threat with perfume. So I drove straight to their little HOA office, a soulless portable trailer parked beside some vinyl-clad model homes that all looked like someone copy-pasted a Pinterest board. Inside, it smelled like air freshener and entitlement. That's when I met Karen Whitlow. Late 50s. Blonde helmet hair. Crisp white blouse. Gold HOA badge pinned like it meant something in court. Her smile was stretched too tight. Her voice syrupy with menace. Mr. Barrett, she greeted. Not even standing. We've been expecting you. Then you already know, I said, placing her letter on the desk, that you're wrong. I don't live in your HOA. She glanced at a clipboard, then back at me with the kind of smirk you'd expect from someone who enjoys telling kids Santa isn't real. Red Pine's community development plan was updated this year. We've expanded aesthetic oversight to include adjacent parcels deemed visually influential to neighborhood character. You fall within that radius. I didn't agree to that. You don't have to. It's part of the revised conditions and covenants. You mean the ones I didn't sign and have no legal binding on my land? I shot back. Karen tapped her red fingernails on the desk. We'll see how the county views it. That's when I knew this wasn't going to be one of those misunderstandings you fix with a coffee and a handshake. This was the beginning of a war. The drone came next. A week later, while feeding the goats, I heard the high-pitched whine of rotors. Looked up and there it was, a shiny black drone hovering over my pasture. Camera lens glinting in the sun like an eye that blinked without shame. I waved it off. Threw a rock at it for good measure. Next day, it was back. Again. And again. Then came the notices stapled to my fence post. Bright yellow sheets with fake legal lingo and bolded threats, last warning. Remove non-compliant items. One of them was stuck to my granddad's hand-carved gate. I'd had enough, so I installed cameras. Not just one or two. Full system, night vision. Motion detection. Live stream backup. If Karen thought she was going to play dirty, I'd make sure her game got recorded in HD. But the final straw wasn't a drone. Or a threat. Or a letter. It was the summons delivered by a courier in khakis, holding it out like he didn't want it to touch him. Red Pine Meadows was suing me. Suing me for $1.500 in unpaid fines and damages to community image. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my coffee. My land. My name. My fight. And Karen just gave me the first reason to push back harder than she could ever imagine, because she may have started this war, but I was going to finish it. I woke to the sound of hell breaking loose. 3:17 a.m. The sharp, grinding crunch of wood and iron being torn apart jolted me out of bed like a grenade had gone off in the yard. My dogs, Duke and Daisy, erupted, barking, snarling, hurling themselves at the door like they sensed a war on the other side. I grabbed the shotgun from behind the headboard. Still half in yesterday's jeans. Heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. When I reached the porch, the scene lit up in a strobe of chaos. Floodlights mounted on a lifted black truck illuminated the remains of my cedar and iron ranch gate, flattened. Splinters and steel twisted like an exploded rib cage. Beyond it, 4 figures moved with military precision, all wearing cheap yellow vests with the letters CHO enforcement duct taped across the front. One had a clipboard. Another held a crowbar. All of them were stomping across my lawn like it was a condemned building. Not a private ranch that had been in my family for 3 generations. I shouted, "Hey! You're trespassing. Get off my land." They didn't flinch. Didn't even turn. The guy with the crowbar kicked open the barn door while Clipboard Lady pulled out her phone and began snapping photos like she was filming an episode of Fixer Upper, Hostile Edition. By the time I got close, flashlight in one hand, shotgun in the other, they were already inside the barn, my barn, rummaging through my tools, lifting tarps, inspecting my 1971 Mustang like they were code inspectors from hell. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I barked. The bald guy, big, red-faced, maybe mid-40s, just looked at me like I was the intruder. "This is an active HOA compliance inspection," he said smugly. "We're within our rights." I nearly laughed. "You broke my gate, crossed my fence line, and entered my building at 3 in the damn morning. That's not an inspection, that's a felony." He shrugged. Clipboard Lady raised her phone again. "Smile," she muttered. That's when I saw red. Before things escalated further, I made the smartest move of the night. I stepped outside, called 911, and said 6 words that changed everything. "I've got an armed break-in." Sheriff's deputies arrived 7 minutes later. Lights blazing, gravel spitting, with sirens so loud they finally stopped filming my Mustang. Deputy Willis, a tall brick wall of a man, stepped out with his hand on his holster. "This ain't your property," he said to Clipboard Lady. "And this sure as hell ain't your barn." They tried to argue, cited bylaws, flashed phony papers. Willis wasn't having any of it. "All 4 of you," he said, voice like cold steel. "Out. Hands visible. You're under arrest for felony trespass, destruction of property, and attempted burglary." They didn't cuff easy. The bald guy swore vengeance. Said something about consequences from the HOA board. I didn't care. By sunrise, they were gone, stuffed into cruisers, and I had my land back, temporarily. But something about that night didn't sit right. It wasn't just the violation, it was the way they moved. The gear they brought. The attitude like they were above the law. Like this wasn't random. It wasn't. 3 weeks passed. Quiet ones. No more drones. No more fake fines. It was the kind of silence that hums with threat. I spent most of it reinforcing the barn, replacing the gate, and installing even more cameras. One in the rafters. One in the chicken coop. Even one hidden in an old mailbox aimed at the gravel road. Then the smoke came. It was early evening. I was feeding the goats when I caught the smell, burnt plastic and gasoline. Sharp enough to make my throat sting. The sky, once pink with dusk, was turning orange-gray. Like a wildfire had cracked open the horizon. I ran fast. The fire started near the old mesquite grove, dry brush, high grass, perfect kindling. Flames licked up the fence posts, dancing straight toward the barn. I grabbed the hose, started soaking everything I could. But the wind was fast, erratic. Then the neighbors came. Susan from 2 lots over showed up first with buckets. Then Harlan with his old water tank truck. A few more followed. No questions. Just action. We fought fire like men fight war, with everything we had. And by some miracle, we stopped it. The barn was safe. But as we kicked ash off our boots and caught our breath, Susan found it. A half-melted road flare. Burned on one side. Taped to it was a scrap of paper. The words barely legible through the scorch marks, "Next time. We won't miss." I stood at the edge of my charred pasture, boots coated in ash, holding the melted road flare like it was Exhibit A in the trial of the century. The paper still clung to it. The threat scorched but clear, "Next time. We won't miss." That's when it stopped being personal. That's when I declared legal war. The next morning, I called Dean Connolly, my old friend and lawyer, a Vietnam vet with a bark like a pit bull and a memory sharp enough to quote building codes from 1973. "Dean," I said, voice still hoarse from smoke, "they tried to burn me out. I've got the proof." Within 24 hours, we filed a civil suit against the Red Pine Meadows HOA. Trespassing, vandalism, harassment, attempted destruction of property, emotional distress. We included the drone footage, the break-in videos, and yes, the flare. Dean submitted it all in a thick, stapled packet to the sheriff's department too. "This is just the opening volley," Dean said, tapping the paperwork like it was a loaded weapon. "We're going to hit them where it hurts, legally, financially, publicly." But I still didn't understand why they were going this far. Why would a suburban HOA care so much about a ranch they didn't own, didn't govern, and couldn't touch on paper? That answer came on a Tuesday, wrapped in banana bread. Ellen Barnes, my former neighbor, showed up unannounced. Sweet lady, 60-something. Used to raise goats 2 lots over before she sold her land and moved into one of the Red Pine townhomes. She looked nervous, shoulders tight, eyes darting toward the tree line. "Cole," she said softly, "I heard about the fire. I think I can help." I invited her inside. Offered coffee. She declined. Just slid a manila envelope across my table. "What is this?" I asked. "I shouldn't even have it. But I used to help out with HOA record keeping when I moved in. Just volunteer stuff, filing, meeting notes. But I kept copies. Printed some when I got suspicious. And after the fire." I opened the folder and felt my stomach twist. Meeting minutes. Internal memos. A document titled, "Buffer Zone Strategy, Stage 2. It spelled everything out in black and white. Karen Whitlow and the Red Pine HOA board had a coordinated plan to pressure neighboring ranchers into selling or complying. They believed that by surrounding older parcels like mine, they could eventually absorb them under an amended county zoning provision. One phrase burned into my brain: if property owner resists voluntary compliance, escalate through legal and visual violation strategies. Leverage county nuisance codes where applicable. But the kicker came at the bottom of the packet, a transcript of a recorded meeting, notated by Ellen herself. Karen had said, on record, "If we can fake a hazardous waste complaint on that ranch, we can trigger a health inspection. Once that's filed, the county'll shut him down faster than you can say livestock ordinance." I nearly dropped the cup in my hand. "They were going to frame me," I said quietly. Ellen nodded. "They want your land. Your north lot lines up with their Phase 2 expansion. It's about access, an alternate road out of the subdivision. You're standing in their way. I sat back in my chair. The flare, the drone, the break-in, the lawsuit. All of it was part of a coordinated land grab. Dean didn't say a word when I handed him the documents. Just flipped through them. His jaw tightening by the second. This, he said slowly, is no longer a civil suit. This is organized fraud. And it just went criminal. Within hours, Dean submitted the files to the sheriff's department and the state district attorney. We included everything: Ellen's transcript, HOA minutes, zoning maps, the video from my barn's rafters, which clearly caught one of the CHO goons whispering, "Move that pile. Say it's chemicals. That'll shut him down." And just like that, everything shifted. Sheriff Landers called me personally. "Cole, this is now full investigation. We've already flagged their HOA bank accounts. If what you're saying is true, and I believe it is, this could be RICO-level territory." Karen wasn't just a control freak in heels anymore. She was the tip of something far darker, a suburban syndicate hiding behind bylaws. And me? I wasn't just defending a ranch anymore. I was standing between them and the collapse of their scheme. And I wasn't backing down. There's a particular silence that only hits you when something's missing, not broken, not damaged, but just gone. I woke up that morning to the usual sounds of Wolf Creek, bird song, a lazy wind rustling the trees, the creak of my old barn door in the breeze. What I didn't hear: goats, chickens, the low rumble of Bessie the cow snorting near the fence line. I stepped outside, coffee in hand. My dogs paced nervously. Something felt wrong. When I reached the pen, I saw the open gates. Not broken, not cut, unlatched. Like someone knew exactly what they were doing. I ran to the barn and there it was, spray painted across the wall in dripping red letters: "This land isn't yours." My stomach sank like a rock. I dropped the mug, grabbed the security tablet, and pulled up the overnight footage. 3:02 a.m. Two figures. Dark clothes. Headlamps. They moved fast. Precise. Opened the locks. Herded the animals into a trailer. One of them paused just long enough to raise a can of spray paint and leave their mark. No faces. But the truck. The trailer. The license plate? Blacked out. I called Sheriff Landers. They took everything. I told him. The livestock. The message: it's all escalation. Within the hour, Landers and a state investigator were on site. They dusted for prints, examined tire tracks, and found a torn glove snagged on the barbed wire. One of the deputies looked at me and said, "They left in a hurry. Must have heard something." "You think it's HOA again?" I asked. Landers grunted. "Same people. Or the same money. Either way, they're not done." But I was. Done waiting. Done defending. It was time to chase. That afternoon, I got a call from Tyler, a ranch hand from down the road. "Cole, I was driving past that staging lot near Red Pine, you know. The one where they're stockpiling materials for their Phase 2 project. Well, I swear I saw a livestock trailer there this morning. Big one. Black spray paint. Real familiar shape." I grabbed my keys and raced there. What I found made my blood boil. In a gravel clearing behind the development site sat a livestock trailer. Blacked out. Dented on one side. And just barely visible through the layer of spray paint. I saw it, my ranch brand. CB. Scratched out but not gone. I called Landers again. This time, he brought a search warrant. Inside the trailer, hay, water buckets, some goat feed, but no animals. They moved them again. I muttered. This was just a pass-through. The sheriff nodded. Like a smuggling route. "We'll find them." Dean, my lawyer, was already 5 steps ahead. "This isn't just trespassing or vandalism anymore," he said on speaker. "This is theft of livestock, which is a felony. And if we can show the HOA or its parent company had knowledge or involvement, hell, even funding, We're talking racketeering. Full RICO territory. RICO? I asked. Dean's tone shifted. You ever watch the mob trials on TV? Cole? That's what we're going for. That night, the story hit the news. Local paper, rancher's animals vanish amid HOA dispute, foul play suspected. Then regional media picked it up. HOA board members started going silent. No more threats. No more legal letters. Just dead air. Like a storm gone quiet, but building strength somewhere off the radar. 2 days later, my luck changed. Susan called. The same neighbor who'd brought banana bread and exposed the buffer zone strategy. Cole, she whispered into the phone. I think I found them. Found what? The animals. She explained she'd overheard a private HOA meeting. They mentioned a storage unit, rented under a fake name. Out past the county line. She jotted down the unit number, 108. I didn't wait for backup. I drove through the night to a rusted old facility with busted security lights and a chain link gate hanging off one hinge. Row after row of metal roll-up doors, dark, silent, empty, except one. Unit 108. Fresh tire tracks. Dust disturbed. A new padlock. I broke it open with a crowbar. Hands shaking. And there they were. Every goat. Every chicken. Even Ollie, the orange barn cat, curled up on a sack of feed like he'd never left. I dropped to my knees. The air was thick with hay and relief. Then I called the sheriff. Get a team here now, I said. I found them. And I've got the address. Within 24 hours. The discovery made statewide headlines. Stolen ranch animals found in secret HOA storage facility. The news cycle exploded. Investigators swarmed the HOA office. The state attorney general got involved. Even federal interest stirred as the phrase coordinated HOA abuse began trending. And for the first time since this war began, Karen Whitlow went silent. But silence, I knew by now, didn't mean surrender. It meant she was cornered. And I had just lit the fuse. You'd think finding your stolen animals in a hidden storage unit would be the climax. The turning point. The end of the nightmare. But the worst was still coming, because people like Karen Whitlow don't quit. They obsess. And when cornered, they don't surrender, they lash out. It started 3 nights later. I'd just replaced the barn doors, reinforced the frame, rebuilt the coop and restocked the feed. I even replaced the swing my granddad built, the one Karen's fake enforcers trampled during their midnight raid. Things were stable for about 72 hours. Then I found the second letter. Just like the first, no stamp, no sender. Slipped right onto my porch. Clean paper. Typed text. 4 chilling words. Last warning. We finish it. That night, I made the call. Agent Rachel Reynolds, state investigator with a record longer than a Texas highway, had taken over the criminal side of the case. She didn't flinch when I told her about the letter. She's escalating, Reynolds said flatly. We'll need to bait the trap. So we did. We shut off all but one security camera, an old birdhouse cam wired with night vision and motion detection. I left the porch lights off. I set the same scene from the photo Karen's people had used weeks before, me in the rocker, coffee on the table, dog at my feet. But this time, I wasn't sipping anything, I was watching. At 2:11 a.m., the alert pinged. There she was, Karen Whitlow, queen of clipped hedges and HOA tyranny, creeping across my yard in a black hoodie, gas can under one arm, flashlight in the other. Her hair was matted, her face pale. This wasn't the Iron Lady image she projected at HOA meetings. This was desperation in human form. I stepped onto the porch slowly, shotgun lowered but ready. Don't move. She froze like she'd hit an electric fence. Behind her, red and blue lights lit up the yard. Deputy Willis stepped out, handcuffs at the ready. Karen Whitlow, he called. You're under arrest for attempted arson, conspiracy, and felony stalking. She didn't run, just looked at me with burning hate and hissed. You ruined everything. No, I said calmly. I ended it. But it didn't stop with a pair of cuffs on her. They found a flash drive, small, red, taped beneath her shirt. Probably her insurance policy. It turned out to be her execution. Inside, hundreds of files. Emails. Memos. Recordings. Meeting minutes from the Red Pine boardroom. Financial logs showing payouts to 2 local officials. Even surveillance photos of my property with timestamps. One folder was labeled Mitchell Displacement Strategy. It wasn't just me. The HOA had targeted 3 other ranches for integration and redevelopment. Each labeled as a nuisance zone. They'd faked environmental complaints. Altered footage. Even paid a drone operator to fabricate overhead images showing wastewater runoff. The flash drive blew the case wide open. In under 2 weeks, the Red Pine Meadows HOA was formally dissolved. Karen was charged on 11 counts. She pled guilty to 6. Sentenced to 15 years. No parole. Green Core Holdings, the parent company that bankrolled the madness, folded under pressure. Their executives faced civil fraud charges and state seizure of assets. Every shady backdoor deal was dragged into the light. And me? I stood in court as the judge read out the ruling. $790,000. That was the total awarded to me: damages, restitution, legal fees, emotional distress, and lost livestock value. I didn't smile. Not really. Because it wasn't about the money. It was about vindication. It was about proving that a man with a patch of land and a backbone could still win against the machine. Reporters showed up. Neighbors hugged me. Dean, my lawyer, cried into his coffee. Even old Harlan gave me a nod and said, "Damn fine work, son." But the real moment, the one that stayed with me, wasn't in the courtroom. It was back home. Me, sitting on the porch again. Copper by my side. Wind stirring the mesquite. A new barn wall standing strong where the old one burned. And the swing creaking, just like it used to. I looked out over the land and thought of something my grandfather used to say. You don't own the land, Cole. The land owns you. And if you treat it right, it'll fight for you when the time comes. He was right. This land fought back. So did I. And we won. If you're listening out there and dealing with a crooked HOA or a bully in a boardroom, don't fold. Stand your ground. The quietest land can hold the loudest battles. And sometimes, the storm only makes the roots grow deeper. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment what you would have done in my boots, and subscribe for more real stories of HOA madness right here on HOA Psychotic. Cole out.